Good afternoon and half a day. The Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriations, and Housing is now called to order. Today is Friday, October 7th, 2022, and the time now is 1:35. Public notice for this public hearing were disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets on Friday, September 30th, and Tuesday, October 4th. And again, today is Friday, October 7th. It is now 1:35. Agenda, there are two bills that we'll be entertaining today. The first one will be Bill 340-36, introduced by myself, co-sponsored by Vice Speaker Tina Rose Muña Barnes, Senator Amanda Shelton, the oversight for University of Guam, Senator Clynton Ridgell, and Pedo Terlaje. An act to amend Section 13, Part 3 of Chapter 2 of Public Law 36-107, the fiscal year 2023 budget law, relative to the University of Guam's capital improvement funds. Fiscal note for Bill 340-36 was requested on September 30th. It will receive and disseminate to all senators via email by the Committee on Rules on October 5th. Those testifying on behalf of Bill 340 LS are invited to the panel. They are, do you have the sign-in sheet? I know I see Dr. Kreis and Dr. Anita and Randy. Okay, so why don't we just go ahead and move along with this. General rules for this public hearing. Written testimony shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide my legislative staff with your written testimony for photocopying. Testimonies may be read, and lengthy testimonies should be summarized to about 5 minutes. If you need additional time, it'll be available to you. Okay. Those testifying will be allowed to present oral testimony. Once you're done, please remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony, as may be desired by members of the committee. Questions and testimonies shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individuals testifying is not permitted. Any violation of the general rule of conduct will result in removal from the public hearing room. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for these proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum may be restricted from providing oral testimony and may be asked to leave or will be removed from the room. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. Please state your name and your title for the record. I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues that have joined me this afternoon. Oversight Chair for the University of Guam, Senator Amanda Shelton, Senator Chris Dueñas, and Senator Joanne Brown. Good afternoon to my colleagues, the University of Guam representative, and to the people here today, watching online or on television. Bill 340-36 LS was introduced by myself along with my colleagues. As I mentioned earlier, Vice Speaker Tina Muña Barnes, Senator Amanda Shelton, the Oversight Chair, and Senator Clynton Ridgell, and Senator Pedo Terlaje. The appropriation authorized in Public Law 36-107 in the fiscal year 2023 budget expressively allocates $1.15 million to the University of Guam Capital Improvement Fund as a loan payment to the University of Guam endowment for the construction of the Students Success Center and the College of Applied and Natural Science Engineering building, which is slated to begin construction in January. The FY23 budget law provided UG continued appropriate authority, and thus the FY22 appropriations for this loan payment will be used this fiscal year since the construction had not begun in 2022. The change in the language from shall to may will assist UG in preparation and presentation for the WAS accreditation. WAS review has revealed the university's fiscal statute is an area that is needing the most assistance. By relieving this language, we will provide UG with additional support to address this major concern and ensure the university continues to be an accredited institution for our local students and those of our region. I look forward to the testimony and discussion on this bill as we continue to support our students and the university community. We have also additional folks from the university. I think we got Dave Okada and Glenn Leonguero. If you want, Dr. Kreis, they can be seated on the panel if they choose to. Mr. Primo, Glenn, you want to have a seat there? And if Dave can come in. Andrew, can you call Dave Okada in, please? We'll get somebody to bring him in. Andrew, we need him to sign in. Dr. Christ, we'll begin with you, sir, if you can. You
Mr.
do have a copy of
Chairman.
your testimony. You can go ahead and read it, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Thomas Christ, the president of the University of Guam, and I'd like to start by extending my appreciation, our collective appreciation to Senator Joe San Agustin, Senator Tina Rose Muña Barnes, Senator Amanda Shelton, Senator Clynton Ridgell, and Senator Jose Pedo Terlaje for sponsoring this bill and for their swift attention in assisting the university to maximize the funds appropriated to the university this fiscal year 2023. While it has been a long time coming, I'm happy to report that the construction of the Student Success Center and the Engineering Annex will begin in January of 2023. In about 2 years, our Triton students will soon enjoy a place where they can gather, create, and collaborate with one another. Our Triton engineers will have a building they can call their own, equipped with laboratories and classrooms. There is a lot going on in our Triton community. We're excited and grateful to our legislature for helping us make this happen. As construction starts, payments toward the $21.7 million USDA loan will begin. Public Law 36-107, the FY 2023 budget law, provided the university with two things. One, that the university shall allocate $1.15 million from its general operations appropriation to the UOG Capital Improvements Fund for the purpose of paying the lease agreements related to the Student Success Center and the Engineering Annex. And two, that the university's FY 2022 appropriations shall not lapse, but rather be a continuing appropriation. With the continuing appropriation provided for through Public Law 36-107, the university is prepared to utilize the FY 2022 funds to begin making payments toward the lease agreements. Adjusting the word shall to may for the FY 2023 appropriation will allow the university to ensure all funds appropriated and allotted will be used to help strengthen the university's financial position in light of its upcoming WASC accreditation review next year. We are most grateful for the support and willingness of the legislature to assist the university in this matter to help us get through FY 2023, as funding for operations do remain tight and every dollar is most helpful. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony on Bill 340-36, and again for the legislature's continued support for our university. Biba UOG.
Is there anyone else in the panel who'd like to testify before we ask my colleagues to ask questions?
Buenas Day, Honorable Chairman, Honorable Senators. Sejus Masi, thank you so much for this opportunity to entertain this particular bill to essentially recognize the importance of the university being more resourceful with regard to balancing our financial sustainability. And what this bill will do, which really very much aligns with the University of Guam's current self-evaluation of itself as an institution. We do have a WASC accreditation review that would take place in early September of next year. That is the off-site review. It is based on our self-study, which we will finalize by the end of June. And one of the main components within our self-study is really how is the University of Guam essentially strengthening itself in terms of financial sustainability. And what this bill would allow us to do is to ensure that it is part of that overall framework that gives us that flexibility to demonstrate not only to our creditors, but also to our community as a whole and to you as senators that we are doing everything we can using that flexibility to ensure that we can support our academic mission as it relates to our accreditation. So, Sejus Masi for providing this opportunity, and certainly we look forward to whatever support you can provide. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Enriquez. I will begin with the, anyone else would like to speak? No one else? Okay. I guess you'll just be open for any questions then. I'd like to recognize, I identified everybody except Mr. Ballinger. Recognize that he's part of the panel, all right? Thank you, sir, for joining us. Senator Shelton, do you have any questions for the panel?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. No questions for the panel. I'm glad to be here and to support this initiative. We've been talking about it for a long time, and I'm happy to see this through with your leadership, Mr. Chair, from the Budget Committee Appropriations to allow this to finally happen for our students and our future students of the University of Guam. As you know, we've been talking about a new student center, a student success center for years since I was a student, maybe since some folks here have also been a student. And so to know that this is finally going to come to fruition and we're able to allow for the policy that's needed to empower the University of Guam to complete this project is, I think, exciting today for us. So I look forward to it happening and breaking ground in January. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Shelton. Senator Dueñas, do you have any questions for the panel?
Mr. Chairman, and certainly appreciate the introduction of this bill. Grateful for the panel being here today. Just wanted to make sure for the public that may be watching, and as I read through the bill and read through your testimony, that we just have once again this exercise of being clear on what the bill calls for. So what I'm seeing is that it really is through prudent fiscal management, controls, and the like, and proper allotment released to the University of Guam. Essentially, you will have the flexibility, and the change of the language essentially will give you that flexibility to use appropriated funds, as this body always likes to attempt to do, so that we're working within the structure of the budget and the fiscal management, as opposed to sometimes when we're outside of that and then requiring additional appropriations subject to what has been presented. So I just wanted to have you, Dr. Christ, please just elaborate a little bit more on that, so that maybe our interested public that's watching along understands how we're really providing for additional flexibility in fiscal management here.
Thank you, Senator, for that question. And so Randy Wiegand, the Vice President for Administration and Finance, can be more specific about it. But this allows us to use the funds that were appropriated for the purpose of repaying the loan. So it's been a delay in the beginning of the loan due to a number of different things over quite some time. But we're very happy to get to this point, as this allows us to use the funds in the way that it was intended from the beginning. So, and Randy might have.
Yeah, so thank you, Senator, for the question. And you're right that this is all about flexibility. We're just trying to make sure that we have maximum flexibility to try to get us through this next fiscal year. And to the extent where we don't need the funds to be used for the projects, we can use those to help with our operational funding challenges. So this is all about just giving us maximum flexibility to try to get through this next year.
Mr. Chairman, I really appreciate that. I know that there's been some back and forth, and we'll continue to try to work through things in terms of understanding, use of money, whether opportunities that you've been able to avail of to see this project forward, whether it be on the federal side or other, funds provided in addition to what federal funds are available, i.e. rescue funds and the like, but that's neither here nor there here. I just want to say I appreciate your diligence in the bridging there of that issue going forward to see this through and to use at least what's available through the Appropriation Authority, and then we'll continue to collaborate and see what we can do going forward in the future. But I think it's it's really a demonstration of your willingness to use whatever means, and the willingness also for the continued carrying over of appropriations that allows for the fiscal management within the government, living within the constraints of the budget. And that's what many of us are trying to accomplish. So I congratulate the entire faculty for that effort. And like I said, we'll continue to collaborate going forward on any additional resources as sees fit as the projects move forward. So you have that assurance, at least from myself, for another month maybe.
Thank you.
Thank you, and God bless you all, and Biba UOG, and we hope we certainly hope that tomorrow night's event is a great, large success, and continue to support Guam's jewel in the Pacific, this excellent university. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Dueñas. Senator Brown, do you have anything you'd like to ask of the panel?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, certainly to President Christ and the members of your team from the University of Guam. I did want to ask you, it was relayed that this is to help get you through the fiscal year, but what's the plan for next year, next fiscal year, to address the ongoing payments that are going to be required for this?
Yeah, this has been an ongoing appropriation from the legislature, so we're hoping that the legislature is going to be able to provide this from the Territorial Education Facilities Fund in the future. That's been the intended repayment source for about a decade now.
And
So
what's the time frame for this? How many years are we looking at?
it's a 40-year commitment. I'm sorry, it'll be about 31 years left by the time we get into the principal part of the contract. So it goes to 2056.
Gosh, I don't know if we'll be here by... No, I appreciate it. I mean, it's just being mindful. I understand the need for the fiscal upgrades of facilities and adding on and building new facilities as well, and expanding the outreach of the university. Again, it's just a question of always fiscal responsibility and making sure the funds are there, because again, I anticipate, I think a number of us do in the legislature, that next year we're going to start seeing a decline in revenues coming into the government. Again, it's just a question of priority and, what can we cover so we don't end up at the short end of ending up, affecting contracts that we have and obligations that we have to pay. So I recommend to all government agencies to look at their list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm sure you have, in prioritizing what's the most critical in the event that the revenues, which I anticipate are going to decrease. So with that, I don't have any further questions. Thank you again for coming and providing your testimony and input with regards to this bill. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr.
Senator.
Chair.
Thank you, Senator Brown. I'm just happy that this is going to get on the road. I remember going to school there in '75, so I know what the student center looked like. I don't think anybody here was going to school then. 1975. As a matter of fact, back then, the university was free for the first 2 years. And that's something I've been hoping to figure out how we can do that. So we can try to entice the people, their students of Guam, to go to school. But one of the first obstacles we do have is to get DOE to make sure the students, when they come up to the University of Guam to attempt to get enrolled, pass the entrance test. Once they pass that, they don't have to be taking the makeup course to pass the English and the math. And that's what I'm hoping DOE would be able to succeed. So when the University of Guam gets possible attendees, you can actually count on them. And then it starts rolling in that direction. And the University of Guam, with all the other projects, it just starts taking off on their own. And then the reduction in general fund will just happen automatically. And then University of Guam will be on its feet and just running. And I actually look forward to that. And with that, I think we'll just go ahead and wrap it up. All my colleagues have asked the questions. And we'll see next year what happens. Like Senator Dueñas said, at least for the next month. We got one more month, folks. But I look at it positively. The four of us will hopefully return, and then we can continue on in the same movement for the University of Guam. Because if I'm correct, I think we're all alumni from the university. And with that, I want to thank everyone for attending this public hearing and for providing feedback and suggestions. Bill 340-36 is duly heard by the committee, and the public hearing is now adjourned. The time now is 1:50. Sizuz Mausi, and please have a nice day. Take care. Be safe. Thank you. Good afternoon. The Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing is now called to order. Today is Friday, October 7th. It is now 2:05. Public notice for this public hearing were disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets on Friday, December 30th and October 4th. Again, today is Friday, October 7th, and it is now 2:05. The bill we will be entertaining this afternoon is Bill 155-36 COR as amended by the Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing, introduced by Senator Anthony Ada and Senator Chris Dueñas. An act to amend Section 3606D4 of Chapter 3, Title 16, and Section 51202C of Article 2, Chapter 51, Title 10, Guam Code annotated, and to add a new Article 6 to Chapter 51 of Title 10, Guam Code annotated to relative to disposal of junk vehicles. I don't know about junk vehicles, they're all called littering. Fiscal note for Bill 155-36 COR as amended by the Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing was requested on September 29, 2022. It was received and disseminated to all senators via email by the Committee on Rules on October 6. Those testifying on behalf of Bill 155-36 COR as amended by the Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing are invited to the panel. And today on the panel we have from EPA, we have Glenn Nicholas, Michelle Estimosa from also EPA, Tony Lohan as an observer. We have Jesse Alec, the president of the Mayor's Council, and Mr. Angel Sablan, also from the Mayor's Council. We did request for we will be submitting written testimony from DRT and the Attorney General's office. We did not get any, not attending due to prior engagement, the Department of Agriculture, and no response from GPD or DPR. So make sure we have that very clear. We did ask them to attend. General rules for this public hearing. Written testimony shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide my legislative staff with your written testimony for photocopying. Testimony may be read and lengthy testimony should be summarized to about 5 minutes. Those testifying will be allowed to present all testimony. Once you are done, please remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony as may be desired by members of the committee. Question and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violation of this general rule of conduct will result in removal from the public hearing room. Proper form and quorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for these proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and quorum will be removed from the room. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. You state your name and your title for the record. I'd like to acknowledge that my colleagues that have joined us this afternoon, we have Senator Chris Dueñas, also co-sponsor of the bill, and will be speaking on behalf of the author of the bill. We have Senator Brown, and we have Senator Sabina Perez. And I'd ask Senator Dueñas to please give the opening statement. Thank you.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Chairman, and I'm very grateful for the panel that has assembled here today. Just before I read the sponsor's statement, essentially the committee has deemed this as amended. We can go back and forth amended. It seems a little bit like a substitute bill, but good enough. I just wanted to be clear that the public who's listening, the original bill, as it was heard, basically led to this substitute version, which we kind of look as a substitute bill. But it is labeled as amended. But I will read the sponsor's statement and look forward to entertaining the questions from the panel and their comments in terms of the bill. Mr. Chairman, this is the sponsor's remarks. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for this hearing. After the hearing on the original bill, which was the original 155-36, my staff and I met with both attorneys of the legislature's legal bureau over the concerns of lack of due process that would result from the enactment of the original bill. To make a long story short, the term abandoned vehicles and the case law that the attorneys cited from other jurisdictions is completely different from the vehicles that this bill intends to address. The term abandoned vehicle, as used in statutes and case law across the nation, refers to vehicles that have a value beyond that of scrap metal. The problem that we are trying to address on Guam is defined in the laws in other states and federal law as junk vehicles. The problems with junk vehicles across the nation are dealt with through littering, environmental hazard, and public nuisance laws in other jurisdictions. With abandoned vehicle laws, due process is required to give the owner the opportunity to claim the vehicle before it is sold or disposed of. With junk vehicle laws, the assumption is that the owner is disposing of the vehicle in hidden locations to avoid paying for disposal costs. Our research reveals that the cost to tow a junk vehicle to a salvage company on Guam was about $150 at the time this bill was introduced. The cost for the salvage company to remediate the vehicle by removing hazardous fluids, tires, and plastics was around $200 per vehicle. These costs far exceed the value of the remaining scrap metal. This substitute bill does two things. First, it creates the term junk vehicle. Second, it integrates that illegal discarding of junk vehicles into our littering laws. In making these changes, it will be easier for our village mayors, GEPA, DPW, DRT, and other agencies that deal with this problem to dispose of junk vehicles without the necessary bureaucratic delay. In our notes, this amended bill is not officially posted on the legislature's website. Instead, it was posted to an attachment to a memorandum for the rules chairperson, and the original bill was taken down. If the public wants to compare the two bills, they will have to get the original bill from the clerk. The bill defines and administers the enforcement of junk vehicles through the addition of a new Article 6 to Chapter 5110 GCA. This is the chapter titled Solid Waste Management and Litter Control. There is due process provided in the bill in the newly created 516103 in the form of a 48-hour notice to be posted on the vehicle and the opportunity for the owner to claim the vehicle after paying all costs associated. The bill provides guidance to scrap yards by allowing them to use existing GAR, Guam associated rules as we understand them, and not requiring any new rules and regulations to be promulgated. This bill also adds junk vehicles to 51202C as discarded items, as the chairman said, are to be treated as litter. This allows law enforcement to cite those who discard junk vehicles on government property as violating Guam's littering laws. Mr. Chairman, I know this has been kind of a long road, and I know the first hearing, brought about a lot of back and forth. And so we'll see today if the review by the Mayor's Council, who's here, of course, EPA and others, if it has met that requirement or not. But we just look forward at some point to getting to a point to where we can discard of most of the regulatory processes possible, or those things that are impediments, to people who basically put junk on the side of the road. I think it's pretty clear if we go on our routed roads, particular Route 4 is notorious for this, where you see a vehicle on an easement and it starts out as a vehicle, it's on 4 blocks the next day, the tires are gone, the doors are gone, the dashboard's removed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's pretty clear that what that is a big pile of metal junk on the side of the road and not something anyone would go out to claim. So this is what the sponsor and I are trying to accomplish. I know there's a lot of notations in the testimony provided today, which is good, because this is a substitute bill that will once again go back to legal and take into consideration all comments that have been forward. And hopefully we arrive at a solution to finally start cleaning up our roads and not allowing owners who are otherwise irresponsible from littering Guam by just leaving their cars anywhere, vehicles anywhere they want to, and have it be somebody else's problem. So just must, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. We'll begin with, in the order of the sign-up, I think we have Michelle Estimona. You'll be giving the testimony from EPA? Ma'am, if you can go ahead and begin.
Have a day and good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and honorable members of the Committee of General Government Operations, Appropriations, and Housing. My name is Michelle Lastimosa, and I am the Deputy Administrator for the Guam Environmental Protection Agency. The Guam Environmental Protection Agency is in support of any practical legislation which seeks to lessen or prevent any adverse environmental impacts on the island. Junk vehicles are a problem for any community. They provide a home for pests such as mice and rats, and also have a tendency to detract from the aesthetics of a neighborhood and lessening its property value. In most cases, people don't intend to create a problem by having junk vehicles. The vehicles usually begin as a project vehicle that never reaches completion or ends up taking on sentimental value, keeping the owner from getting rid of it. Occasionally, there are some that hold on to too many junk vehicles, which then has the effect of making their property resemble a scrapyard. This then leads to the owner abandoning the vehicle on a public roadway or illegally dumped. The statistics collected through our partnership with the Mayor's Council of Guam and their island-wide environmental cleanup program and the use of the Recycling Revolving Fund reflect the following junk vehicles collected and disposed. So in 2020, 887 vehicles were collected and disposed. 2021, 1,932, and then in 2022, we have a running count of 1,551, with invoices still being reconciled. For your consideration, the agency submits the following comments in order to clarify and ensure that we and other affected agencies, such as the Department of Public Works, the Department of Revenue and Taxation, and the Mayor's Council of Guam, are given the property authority to carry out the actions of the bill's provisions. So line item number 1 is the definition of junk vehicles, which is on page 3, line 9. And our comment is it's a conflicting definition, and we recommend a consistent definition. This term is already defined in 10 GCA Chapter 51 in 51301H, and reads, junk vehicle means a motor vehicle, regardless of operating condition, that the registered owner has declared to have no value or no use, or that is abandoned by being placed, discarded, or disposed of on public or private property without approval of owners or of said property for more than 7 calendar days, or that is no longer registered in accordance with Chapter 7 of Title 16 GCA. Line item number 2, again, it's the junk vehicle page, definition of junk vehicle page 3, line 9, is a conflicting statute. So in 10 GCA Chapter 51-301, junk vehicle states that a junk vehicle is abandoned after being placed on the property for more than 7 days. However, in Title 16, Chapter 7, Section 3606, gives a legal owner 10 days after the mailing of the notice to reclaim the vehicle before the Department of Revenue and Taxation begins appraisal of that vehicle for sale. Line item number 3, regarding Section 51.6.102, junk vehicle forfeiture of title, which is on page 3, line 21 through 25, through page 4, line 1 and 2. And our comment is, again, a conflicting statute. So lines 22 and 25 state that the owner is deemed to have intentionally relinquished title to their junk vehicle when a litter citation is issued under Article 2 of this chapter, which is 10 GCA 51. The due process in Title 16, Chapter 7, Section 3606 gives the legal owner 10 days after the mailing of the notice to reclaim the vehicle before DRT may begin appraising the vehicle and determines that vehicle to be an abandoned vehicle. So we wanted clarification on the legal process for which the government can take ownership of abandoned vehicles. Line item number 4, so on page 4, line 12 through 14, and our comment would be just in addition to the notice being recorded at the at DMV, at DRT, and the mayor's offices, we recommend that the notice also be displayed and that these agencies place the notice on their websites. Line item number 5, page 4, line 15 through 18, we just wanted revised language. to read, no notice shall be posted on junk vehicles until the Mayor's Council of Guam certifies the availability of funds. And that is because Guam EPA, through either an allotment from Guam EPA or direct appropriation from the legislature to implement and fund through the RRF, the Island-Wide Environmental Cleanup Program. The Mayor's Council is responsible for facilitating that program, which then collects, transports, and disposes those abandoned vehicles. Page 4, line 19 through 22, GIPA biannually determines an appropriate fee schedule for the transportation and disposal costs of junk vehicles. Such costs shall be paid from the Recycling Revolving Fund. And again, the Mayor's Council of Guam, upon receipt of funds from the RRF, implements the IACP, and it's the individual mayors that issue the procurement orders or POs to contracted vendors, and it's those vendors who then set their fees for those services. Appropriate fee schedule for transportation and disposal costs under this program shall be determined by the MCOG's contract negotiations with Guam EPA permitted solid waste management facilities, and Guam EPA does not set the fee schedule for private businesses' services. And that is that we cited, so pursuant to 10 GCA Chapter 51, Section 51307, authorization for the Mayor's Council of Guam to contract with recycling companies. So that's where they negotiate their contract with the vendors. And then page 5, line 9 through 11, the legal owner recovering junk vehicle by presenting a receipt of claim and payment of applicable fines and fees from DRT to the mayor's office in the village where the junk vehicle is located. So pursuant to 16 GCA Article 6, Chapter 3, Section 3606B, authorizes DPW to remove an abandoned vehicle from public or private property. Such vehicles shall be stored in either a police parking area, a garage, or licensed public garage. So we were concerned about whether or not a storage facility will be identified, and then who would be responsible for the fees, if any, associated with the storage. So the payment of the fines and fees are going to be made to DRT, but if it's being towed to either a garage or a commercial garage, who would then pay that fee? And then we are seeking clarification on whether or not the mayors would be responsible for releasing the vehicles to the owners upon proof of payment of the fines and fees from DRT. And then what if the vehicles, again, are stored and there's an outstanding storage fee? And perhaps this body would consider an incentive program for licensed facilities to pick up or have owners drop off the junk vehicles and receive a monetary fee for proper disposal. And then this program could then still remain under the IECP under the Mayor's Council of Guam. And then just one more clerical, so page 4, line 5, and then line 23 is just to correct the citation numbering and those preceding. So they're both numbered 516103. And if enacted, we ask that this body understand the regulatory role of the agency and our charge and performing our regulatory role will be exercised in a manner that is consistent with all current and applicable laws of Guam. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony for you today. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lastimosa. Mayor's Council, Mr. Alec, sir, you have written testimony here.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Senators. My name is Jesse Alec, the President of the Mayor's Council of Guam. I just want to state our support for Bill 155 in order to allow the mayors to expeditiously remove and dispose junk vehicles. So the bottom line is we have the money from the Recycling Revolving Fund, and we just want to be able to remove these vehicles, dispose them properly with documentation and accountability. What the Deputy Administrator mentioned in her testimony, I have to say that we agree with most everything she had mentioned. Talking about the certifying of funds, Angel will speak on that as well, because we do receive the money from them, and Angel does a good job at that. We have no qualms about anything on the bill so far. If it doesn't change, again, the Mayor's Council is in support of Bill 155. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Halleck. Mayor. Anyone else would like to testify? Mr. Angel, sir?
Good afternoon. I'm Angel Sablon, the Executive Director of the Mayor's Council of Guam. We support the passage of Bill 155-36 as it will assist us in continuing our efforts in cooperation with the Guam Environmental Protection Agency to rid our island of unsightly junk on public property. However, I believe that there are some conflicting provisions of this bill with current statute. For example, Section 1 under Legislative Findings and Intent, line 13 and 14 of page 1 and line 1, 2 of page 2, it reads, it is to further the intent to allow the current solid waste management, environmental protection, and public roadway laws remain the basis for the proper disposal, recycling of junk vehicles. My issue here is that if current public roadway laws remain the basis for proper disposal, recycling of junk vehicles, then what does Bill 155-36 do? Section 2, Section 3606 of Article 6, Chapter 3, Title 16, Guam Code Annotated, deals with abandoned vehicles. Where then does a person who wants to pay for fines levied for junk vehicle violations go to pay? The judiciary or the Department of Revenue and Taxation? Additionally, with all due respect to the authors of the bill and to the Guam Environmental Protection Agency, most of the administrative costs dealing with the abandoned vehicle program absorbed by the Mayor's Council of Guam with no additional funding. Our offices have to provide the required paperwork, issue requisitions and purchase orders, review invoices, and use time from our administrative employees who are already tasked with other duties dealing with 19 municipalities. I submit to you that instead of proceeds being deposited into the recycling revolving fund, which already has a steady source of income, that it should be deposited into the Mayor's Council revolving fund, although we know there's no money in the abandoned vehicle fund, and appropriated by this legislature to be expended on administrative costs. Section 3, amending Section 51202C of Article 2, Chapter 51, Title 10 GCA to define junk vehicles as litter, makes the whole Article 2, Chapter 51, Title 10 GCA under the title Litter Control become in conflict with the proposed Section 4, new Article 6. The levying of fines and time frame for reclaiming junk vehicles litter differs from Article 2 and the proposed Article 6. Section 4, Section 516102, junk vehicle forfeiture of title. As this section states, an owner of a junk vehicle is deemed to have intentionally relinquished title to their junk vehicle when, 1, littering violation is issued under Article 2 of this chapter involving said junk vehicle, and, emphasis added, 2, the owner fails to claim the junk vehicle within 48 hours of the date in which a notice was posted on such vehicle. Concern: what if there is no owner to be identified? Who does the litter violation go to? If an owner is identified, does not that individual have right to challenge the ticket in court? And if so, we know the court will not handle a litter violation citation within 48 hours of issuance. Concern Section 516103, posting of notice. This section does not make it mandatory that a notice of relinquishing title be posted on any junk vehicle. If some entities do not post the notice on the vehicle, so therefore the owner of a junk vehicle still retains title to their vehicle and we cannot remove it from the public property it is on. Concern Section 516103D, it would not be GPA that certifies that funds are available to pay for the transportation and disposal costs of such junk vehicles. It would be the MCOG once we receive the appropriations from GEPA, as we are the entity that issues the purchase orders and contracts with the recycling companies. So maybe this section has to be clearly rewritten. One other concern: junk vehicles are almost 100% full of trash that is not accepted by the recycling centers. It would again be the burden of the individual mayor's offices to clear all trash from the junk vehicles. I hope you appreciate the reason why we are looking to be a recipient of any funds collected from this proposal instead of continually eating into our own resources that could go further to other operational costs within our villages. Thank you for the opportunity to provide input. We do want to be able to remove junk vehicles. We just want to be assured that we do not face impediments due to conflicting language in other statutes. Perhaps a review by the Office of Attorney General or the legislature's own legal counsel is needed prior to the passage of this bill. Sinceramente, yours truly.
Thank you, Mr. Sablan. Is there anyone else in the panel like to speak before I ask my colleagues to ask any question of the panel and give comments? None? Senator Dueñas first.
To do sponsor, Mr. Chairman, so I think we have at least arrived at one thing. We want to get a clarification on what is junk. I appreciate all of the comments made in the testimony to improve the bill and to deal with possible conflicts. I guess maybe I'll ask both entities, start with EPA. So in this review, this was done either by your legal counsel or just administrators, or how were these comments arrived at? And the reason why I asked that question is, as I read in the opening testimony from the sponsor, we went to our legal counsel to substitute the bill and try to apply the proper statute to arrive at junk as opposed to abandoned vehicles, simply because, as read in the opening statement, that the issue here is what the deeming of the vehicle as junk or abandoned vehicle. There are two different basically situations there. An abandoned vehicle is still determined to have some value. A junk is junk. It's trash. It's like picking up any other type of trash that's on the side of the road. So can I just get a clarification on the review? Is that your legal counsel or legal counsel from the governor's office? Or?
So we did have a multi-staff review. Myself, Glenn Nicholas, who's a solid waste management program manager, as well as Sabrina Cruz-Sablon, who is our recycling officer, as well as our assistant AG assigned to us, conducted the review and provided comments.
And that's good, so that at least we know who we can address our legal bureau to communicate with as we move this bill through committee, so that there's an understanding on the record here of where the comments are coming from. And so when we address from the Legislative Legal Bureau in the committee back to EPA, we'll know who we're communicating with. So that's on the record, and we'll have legal counsel review this hearing so that they can address your concerns, and maybe they'll find everything to be correct, and then once again the corrected bill can be sent for review. If we need another public hearing, that's fine, or a round table. I'm sure the author will be willing to do that. Mr. General Manager or President of the Mayor's Council, was it similar with your situation under the Mayor's Council of Guam and the legal review?
To be very honest, I just did my own review, coming from the School of Hard Knocks.
Nice.
And I can provide you with an opinion from the Office of Attorney General, because sometime last year we had a pause in the program with picking up abandoned vehicles, simply because the Office of Attorney General did not want to sign off on our agreement, because they wanted the definition between abandoned and junk. And we couldn't pick up junk, but we could pick up abandoned vehicles. And so we do have that opinion, and I think that's why we're coming to this, because if we are going to continue to have the operations plan with EPA, we want to have that clarified. Otherwise, you're going to continue seeing junk on government easement. I'll give you an example. Just the other day, before the PO expired last Friday, on Worcester Road, the Mayor, Tony Sanchez, was hurriedly picking up vehicles up to the 5 o'clock hour. He picked them up. Lo and behold, the next day on Saturday, there was another car planted there, no tires, no nothing. And we don't know how it got there, but another vehicle showed up, which is junk. You know, so technically, even if we issued another PO, sometime after EPA approves our operations plan and our expenditure plan, we won't be able to pick up that vehicle because it's not abandoned, it's junk. And we don't even know who the owner is because they just left it out on the road. But we are in review of this, like I said, we support the bill. We need something in statute. We just want to make sure that the AG is not going to come back to us and say, hey, wait a minute, section so-and-so of another section says you can't do it this way, you got to do it this way. So we just want to make sure that everything is kosher.
I agree, and that's why as I was reading through the comments as well and seeing that, and that's why it's going to be a good review, your commentary to our legal counsel, because to me, the way I'm reading, the way the legal counsel made our recommendations is that's what this bill will be doing. It'll be updating statute. So if the conflict exists, I guess it's going to be how, when the bill, if it passes or with these recommendations, it has to clarify the statute at some point. I mean, I think that, you know, statutory construction is something that we'll have our legal counsel review too, because my understanding is when you pass a new law, conflicts in the statute are managed by the prevailing is the latest as passed into law. So we'll have our legal counsel review that as well and give comments back to both the Mayor's Council of Guam and EPA, and we'll await the Attorney General's final on that too, because we were hoping they would be here today. They're not, as well as others, Revenue Tax and other agencies that are mentioned within this regulatory process. So we certainly appreciate your comments. We certainly appreciate the support in general, because I think we all want to do the same thing here. And as far as storage, I looked at storage. Nowhere else do we store junk. We get rid of junk. So I understand that conflict in statute, but I think if this statute fixes that, then you're not looking at storage anymore. You're looking at junk. And what do you do with junk? You throw it away. So if that's the situation that we can arrive at, and there's an understanding, I do understand the issue with regard to identification too. Sometimes VIN numbers are gone, things are gone. My understanding is those things can be found on doors, they can be found in windows, they can be found on so many other parts of the vehicle. How far do we go? What is the government's responsibility to have to try to seek that? Particularly when you got the abandoned vehicle fund that was designed to say, we're probably not going to find an owner. We're probably not going to find anybody who's going to even attempt to be responsible for this. That's why it's junk, just like a bag of trash or something else. But I know, Michelle, you had some comment to that. I'd like to have you express your feelings.
So I know that I certainly don't want to take credit for the work that Glenn and his staff do. In some cases, when you're talking about a junk vehicle and we're looking for a registered owner or, you know, someone to cite, oftentimes, you know, like you said, there are several places on a vehicle where you could find the VIN number, but there are those times when the car is completely burnt. Beyond recognition, there is no identifiable markings that would lead us to find a registered owner. So again, do we consider that abandoned or junk? Because like Angel mentioned, they're not authorized to pick up junk vehicles. They're authorized to pick up abandoned vehicles. So I think we have to either somehow include junk vehicles as part of what they're authorized to pick up, or that we somehow combine both definitions to be interchangeable so that they can pick up the vehicles. But I think that there needs to be some mesh between, I mean, identifying them, but they really are one and the same in terms of disposal.
You know, a quick comment. This is Glenn St. Nicholas, Guam EPA. Oftentimes what I'm seeing out there is people whose vehicle is no longer in operation and it's on the side of the road and they're waiting for a tow. They're not insured, they're paying liability, so they have to tow it themselves. And oftentimes they don't have the means to tow it within the next couple of days or even a week. So we call up the mayor's office, we call up GPD, we're trying to get a status of the vehicle, we contact the owner, and we finally get through. Even with the current registration ownerships, the numbers are not, you know, they're not the correct numbers. with cell phones, they change like clothes. And then we finally get a hold of them, and their reason is, oh, we're towing it tomorrow, or I'll pass by and all of a sudden somebody's towing it, and I pull over and say, hey, what are you guys doing? Oh, we're pulling the car. We couldn't tow it earlier, so we finally got somebody to tow it for us. I think there needs to be a mechanism in place when a person either gets into an accident. I see that a lot of cars that get into an accident, it's just parked there. I mean, the car on Chalampago, it was involved in an accident. It burnt on the side of the road and was there for like, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. We contacted the last registered owner, who doesn't even own the car anymore. So now there's a race, is this an abandoned vehicle or not? And after talking to Guam Police Department and finding out that, oh no, this vehicle was in an accident and somebody else was driving it and all these other things. So the question is, well, when are they going to move the vehicle? And can we have that information? Oftentimes, it's easier to say, hey, Guam EPA, go take a look at this, go investigate that. And we'll do it with the 2 staff that we have, we'll do it. But there's also there's 8 other agencies that can also do the same. So I think that if we just all collectively do what we're supposed to do, that we can really, make an impact on this abandoned vehicle that we're finding on the sides of the road.
Yes, Michelle, go ahead.
So one of the challenges that we have also encountered in enforcement is specifically the definition of junk vehicles in Section 51301 of 10 GCA 51. And that phrase, that the registered owner has declared to have no value or no use. So let's say that we have a complaint logged for a house that has 10 junk vehicles. And we go to assess that complaint, and the owner says, well, they're not junk to me. They're still useful to me. I have not deemed them a waste. So technically, just by that phrase, if the registered owners of those vehicles have said they're still useful to me, they still have value to me, then we can't issue the citation as a junk vehicle being stored on their private property. So that's one of the challenges that was shared regarding that definition.
I really appreciate this dialogue, and Glenn, you brought something up. I actually got a call a couple months ago from a family member that was distraught over that too, because somebody just drove up and abandoned a vehicle, and by the time a week passed, they were trying to be courteous too and thinking, well, maybe that person's having hard times, they'll come back and get it eventually. And after a week, they were like, okay, I got to do something. They call the police department and they're like, call a tow truck. So now you're talking about a private property owner who's going to have to pay the expenses of an abandoned vehicle on their property to be taken away. I mean, this is really a serious issue, and I agree with what you're saying, Michelle. So I think that's where we're going to have to, at some point, get to, what is the definition, and then, if the owner is insistent, because even on a private property setting, a public nuisance with multiple vehicles that harbor rodents and other things that are in danger to other neighbors and a public health hazard, at some point the government has to draw the line. So I agree, there is a lot of embedded. I think if we arrive here and at least we kind of have the meeting of the minds on possible cross definitions and conflicts and fix that with legal counsel and have another product that we can review. If we at least get this for public rights away, first and foremost, I think it's going to be a real victory, because that's really where most, I think, people get so upset about. It's a danger on an easement. I mean, if you lose control of your vehicle, you might be able to recover if you hit an easement and come back, but not if there's a car sitting there. You know what I mean? That's abandoned. So it's just another nuisance, right? Besides it being unsightly and not good for our people or even for guests that we invite. So I think that if we get here, particularly on the public side, and then we migrate over and communicate with the public on what will be determined established value on private property. That's one thing as well, but it's complicated. Yeah. But hopefully you know, we're so happy with your discussion here because it will allow us to go back to our legal counsel and work with the Attorney General's office. But I think we're moving forward, at least by substituting this and trying to get to a final destination of what is junk and what is an abandoned vehicle that could be declared having some value. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like my colleague to be able to comment as well, and we'll see where we go from here. Thanks a lot for your help.
Thank you, Senator Dueñas. Senator Brown, do you have any comments for the panel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Certainly thank you to all of you who are here to testify with regards to this bill. I think we've all been plagued with this. This has been an ongoing issue for quite some time, and I got to look at that vehicle in Pago Bay for like 3 weeks. I have another view on this because I think we're getting to the point where we're losing a sense of personal responsibility. I mean, we all want to go and get the brand new shiny car and drive it around, and then at some point maybe we sell it to someone else and maybe they don't account for it. I don't know. But I do know we have to go pay registration fees every single year. We're mandated by law to go to rev and tax and register our car every single year. And yet when it comes time for whatever reason, someone doesn't want a vehicle, it ends up becoming your problem, my problem, and everyone else's problem. And I don't like that direction that we're going in because I think collectively everybody has a lot of responsibility already on their plate. And one of the things I would like to do, because I think this is where the government bureaucracy is just really continuing to morph into something bigger, with the expectation that your trash is someone else's problem, or your junk is someone else's problem, or your abandoned vehicle is somebody else's problem. If you want to drive on our roadways, we have all these laws we have to comply with. And when it comes for transfer disposal, it's becoming the standard now. I'll just park it. Let Gov Guam, let somebody else, let the mayor figure it out. And I just think that's not acceptable. And that's why I think this problem is proliferating. It's getting more and more. It's getting more and it's continuing to grow. I mean, here I am. I passed by Pago Bay. I'm in the Dueñas jurisdiction, and for about a week and a half, I got to look at that truck parked on the side of the road. I don't know how it disappeared. It disappeared at some point, but it was there that long. I understand your point. There's some individuals that, for whatever reason, are not able to immediately address the situation. My mom had to babysit a car for a week and a half. 3 o'clock in the morning, going out telling people that are trying to, scavengers trying to take stuff off the vehicle, hey, that's not yours. Get out of here. We're going to call the cops. What is this? We're getting to a point now of total irresponsibility. I'd like to see fines imposed on owners that dispose of these vehicles. I think we should require, and sorry, Mr. Chair, Rev and Tax is not here, because I think we should also require, if we need to determine who owns what, because we hear that same old story. Hey, man, I sold that car 3 years ago. Who did you say? I don't know, Jose, whatever. I sold the car. End of story. Did they file that anywhere? I mean, if we need to do that, and you go back to Rev and Tax or whoever and say, hey, I sold the car, here's my official document, here's my Rev and Tax stamp, then at least I'm off the hook, because I've filed, and the new owner, I mean, normally we tell them, you got to go and, register at Rev and Tax, but we don't know if they do that or not. Maybe we need to strengthen that process so we know who the car is sold to, and then it becomes their problem. And you're right, they numbers change, they may move off island, whatever the case may be, but to the best of our ability, we should be able to track down who owns that vehicle. If we can't because it's totally, burned to, we can't find any identification, then fine. But I think everything up until that, it should be very painful to do this sort of thing because it's a hazard to our community. And it's not a standard that we find acceptable. I'm sorry, guys, I'm not into babysitting and holding people's hands. If you want to be responsible enough to own a vehicle, then you need to be responsible to address the disposal of that vehicle. When the lifespan comes, or if you sell it to someone, there should be a process only. And the reason I bring this up is because we have to go every year and register that vehicle. I don't have to register my, thank goodness, I'm not all for government all-encompassing, but I'm not registering my refrigerator or my air conditioner or my water heater. But I have to go and register I have to pay my $100+ every year for what? Why do we even require registration? When you get right, why do we require registration of vehicles? And yet, I can dump my car anywhere, and it's the government of Guam and the people of Guam's problem. And I just think we need to not find that acceptable. Because I'm sure, Mayor, you got so much else you need to do in the village of Pedo. So I would want to see, Mr. Chair, and to the sponsors with Senator Chris, I want to see the fines increase. I want to make it painful if you do this. And I think we should have a meeting with Rev and Tax and have them, what's the process in the event the vehicle is transferred or sold to another owner, so that that new owner is officially on record. Because otherwise, I'm saying get rid of the whole registration process because we're no further along. with regards to addressing proper enforcement. This is every week. Just drive your same route every day, and we're seeing this over and over and over again. Government regulates to a certain degree, and I'm not all for government with regards to private property, but if it's a hazard to the neighborhood, if it's a safety hazard to the adjacent community, then that's something we can regulate. I mean, someone wants to collect all the junk cars and they're living with their neighbor 5 feet away or 10 feet away, then we have laws that can control. We have zoning laws. I don't know in the zoning law where it allows you to have a junkyard in your front yard. I mean, it's bad enough in some of these residential communities, people just park it right on the public easement and it sits there for a year. It's a hazard to the adjacent drivers, hazard to the children in the neighborhood, and it's okay. I don't understand that. I really don't. And I know that with effective and consistent enforcement, when people know that, oh my goodness, if we do this, there's consequences, most people comply. I know because I've been in your chair. I've sat at your job. I mean, we went all the way down to finding people flicking, cigarette butts out their window. I don't know when you guys last did that. We had no more staff than you have today. It's a question of enforcement and consistency, and I really think with regards to the registration process, if there's no value in doing that, which right now that's how it seems to me, Mr. Chair, and you've worked at Rev and Tax, but if there's no ultimate value of benefit to the community, why do we do it? And if we're going to do it and we're going to charge all these other fees, I don't want to always have to pay for someone else, cleaning up someone else's junk. Bad enough, I'm responsible for cleaning up my own. But I think as a government, we got to stop this idea that we're here to babysit everybody. If you want to buy a car, then take responsibility for it. So that's my view. I don't have any questions for anybody here. I think you've brought your area of concern, but I think we really need to hammer down on this issue in particular because it's proliferating and it's getting worse, and now people think it's the standard, that it's okay to take your junk vehicle after accident, whatever the case may, and just leave it there because Gov Guam and the people of Guam are going to come and collect it for you.
Thank you for that. I think one of the comments that we've had and discussions that we've had within our agency is, again, that payment into what used to be the Abandoned Vehicle Fund, now the RRF, that if they're paying into this, where's the return on paying those fees? And again, during my testimony, there was the recommendation that we provide an incentive program or something written into the language that incentivizes these owners to then turn over these junk vehicles, instead of abandoning them, to a recycling facility that would then be paid out through the RRF monies that's allocated or appropriated to the Mayor's Council. That one, gets rid of the junk vehicle properly, but also extends the RRF funds that are then given to the Mayor's Council so that it doesn't go towards collection, that it's just, part of that fund just goes towards disposal. So that was one of our recommendations from our staff.
Well, then maybe it could be added is the government contracts out with a vendor, whoever the heck that may be, on an annual or buy whatever, every 2 or 3 years or whatever the case may be in terms of procurement, and have them be the accepting facility and give some financial incentive to drive the car and bring it there, obviously with proof of ownership. I don't want them stealing cars and bringing them down to, sad to say, they're going to people to figure out a way to do that. Then that's an option. You might love your car and it's 25 years old and its lifespan has been met and people are, well, what do I do with it? If I don't sell it, what do I do with it? Then that could be a viable option. I mean, you can give many options. People that are going to break the law are going to break the law no matter what you do. But if that would be an incentive and you determine a certain amount goes back to them, if you're going to pay me $100, $200, $300 to properly, abandon not abandon, but take my abandoned car to a, licensed facility that's authorized or under the government, procured by the government for that service, and then it's a safe way. We're not dealing with unsanitized vehicles on the side of the road or collecting up over our northern waterlands. That's fine. I'm open to that. But we've got to do something better than what we're doing now because it's the same old story. They dump the vehicle and it becomes our problem. And even though, we register every year, we can come back, oh, we don't know, we can't track this person, or they sold the car. That wasn't the owner, was the drug. Well, then you got to be responsible who the heck has your car. Otherwise, it should be your problem. And I just don't think we do enough in terms of enforcement of these laws that we put in place. And yet we require our people every year to go register. Because I'm like, heck, I'd be open to heck, register every 5 years then. Why are we paying the government $100+ every year and we're no further along? And then I'm paying to collect somebody else's vehicle who's been irresponsible. And I just think we got to stop that practice. Otherwise, we're not going to change the behavior. But I appreciate your suggestion. Maybe something can be added to the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Good points you brought up. Senator Parrish, do you have any comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to the panel here today. Yes, I've been in constant communication with Guam EPA, and they're hot on the trail of trying to close one of these illegal dumps in ORDOT. So I know it takes a lot of, boots in the ground to really track some of these violators, because they change addresses, they change even their names for that matter. And so I think, we'll definitely would like to work with you in regards to, enforcement of these unpermitted solid waste, which I view as unpermitted solid waste facilities, right? And we had that discussion, so we definitely would follow up with that. I do appreciate everybody's feedback, and it looks like there is some overlap or consensus in regards to the testimony. So just so that you know, the Bill 284-36, which is on the governor's desk right now, I think addresses some of the issues in regards to the time limit. So yes, currently the definition of junk vehicle basically has a 7-day requirement. And so in that bill, we actually deleted that language. So should the bill be signed into law, then that would take away, I think, one of the issues, the concern that that part of the law under the littering solid waste law is incongruous with what's currently in this bill, 48 hours. So I think that would help. We actually saw that coming. This bill was, introduced, and we saw that there was a need to streamline the process. And I think this would be a good measure, one complementary measure to the Zero Waste Act bill. The other thing that I would like to point out is in the Zero Waste Act, we did increase authorization of the mayor's council to use it for interim storage facilities. So what that could look like is potentially having a designated spot to allow collection, or as far as an intermediate spot to place these junk vehicles, or to have maybe the people in your community properly place it there instead of putting it in the jungles, right? So it would again be a permitted spot with the Guam EPA's oversight. So yeah, I think this is an important measure. We need to maybe look through it legally and make sure it doesn't violate any rights of citizens, but at the same time, it helps protect the environment. So the other thing too is the fund. I know there was a question about putting in the mayor's revolving fund. In the recently updated litter control revolving fund, the Litter Act, I was basically I wanted to keep the litter defacement fund, I believe is what it was called, for that purpose. So the money can potentially go in there instead of the mayor's recycling fund. And the reason for that is we can see the effects, so how much enforcement is occurring. So if we have a segregated fund that already exists in law, if the money could be placed in there, then we can get a positive feedback on how it's working and if it is working too. So that just would be my recommendation. Any kind of fines or that we receive is segregated out from a bigger fund. I don't know, what is your thoughts on that?
EPA, because it's under the recycling revolving rules and regulations. I think the only administrative costs that are allowed are for those incurred by EPA. We may get the program and run the program, but none of those funds are for administrative costs, and that's just, we probably just have to iron that out and maybe add in a provision in the next, well, we couldn't even add it into our operations plan because it's governed by the recycling revolving rules and regs. That's probably what needs to be amended to include administrative costs for Mayor's Council of Guam. Because at the present time, like I said, we absorb all the costs. We only pay for the actual contractor to receive the vehicles, haul the vehicles, the white goods, the green waste, the electronics, the loose metals. But as far as our office and personnel working on these, sometimes they're in on weekends trying to catch up with getting invoices in. And on top of that, they have the ARPA money that they again have to deal with, the ESF money they have to deal with, all these other accounts. And, you know, we just probably need to get some administrative costs covered. We do it now, but then, like I said, it eats into our operational costs.
But actually, my question was the actual fund it's going to. So instead of the mayor's revolving fund, there's something called the Municipal Litter Defacement Fund, and that was tied to the litter control, the litter enforcement. So it was more to a specific fund rather than to this bigger fund. So I understand the administration. I agree. You know that you should
And there's
be
also
compensated.
a municipal fund in Chapter 40 under the Mayor's Council of Guam that gives each mayor $25,000, but it's never been funded. It's been zero ever since, but it's still in the books.
Yeah, so this fund is actually supposed to be the funds that are received from enforcement by mayors. So the fines associated with that by enforcement by mayors is supposed to go to that specific fund that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So that's my proposal, is to, you know, whatever fines that you receive go to that fund rather than to the mayor's revolving fund. So that way we know, you know, how impactful these laws are. You know, it's more of a direct indicator, I think.
Senator, if I may, I would agree that it would be best to control it that way and to put it in the municipal litter, the account that you're referring to. And I do understand what Angel is saying, because they're two different things, I think.
Okay.
And the administrative side that Angel is referring to is important for us, because it really is a problem in our process when it comes to the administrative roles of our current staff and having to comply with EPA's requirements, or having to make sure that everything is given to EPA properly. But as far as the enforcement portion that you're referring to, I think the mayors would agree to actually see that happen, where we could actually we could visibly see the fruits of that fund and the fines that are the penalties that are paid. So I would agree to that. Instead of depositing into the revolving fund, is it the municipal litter fund that you're referring to?
Yes. Yeah.
Correct. And then having to address Angel's issue with the administrative fee, I think that's something that we can deal with EPA. And a part of that recycling revolving fund, perhaps, if that's what it is. I know I haven't had that discussion with them, but perhaps we could have that conversation to subsidize our administrative costs. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I appreciate that clarification. Thank you. Yeah, so I do look forward to supporting this bill. Granted that we do align some of the definitions and just strengthen the bill further. And I do appreciate all your work. I know you guys are working hard, try to address these violations. Yes, Glenn.
I know DPW is not here, so I want to ask a question. DPW's held, they play a big part in the removal of these abandoned vehicles that's worth something. And they're going to be spending a lot of resources, manpower, equipment, and identifying a location, whether it be a police impound lot or a public or private parking garage, which I'm not even familiar with at all. The only ones that I'm familiar with is, you know, the tow companies having their yards. So, you know, my question is, do they get any of these funds to help support their operations and, you know, their part? Because I want to say that I think the fund goes to the Island Beautification Fund for the removal. And I'm just wondering if any of that funds would go to DPW for their part as well.
Yes, so in the bill that we passed, we updated the litter control revolving fund. So if they are one of the law enforcement officers that help enforce this, they are included in, the agency is, can receive funding for that, for the work that they do in enforcement. So there is, that was the update in the law. But it's through the litter control revolving fund, not the recycling revolving fund. So yeah, currently the Bill 284 would allow them to contract with companies. So yes, they can use the money, you know, once this bill is signed into law, they can access the funds to contract companies to remove these vehicles, in addition to the mayors. Oh yeah, sorry, no further questions, but yeah, I do look forward to the updates to the bill. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Right, thank you, Senator Parrish. I just got a few questions and comments. Number one, Senator Brown brought up about registration. Every year we all register. Every one of you have a vehicle. I know that. I've seen you all on the road. You pay for street light fund, correct? I don't know why anybody's paying for street lights when your vehicles are approved by the United States Department of Transportation. You got headlights. It's for the people of Guam, the street lights. It's not for the people driving on the road. And if you don't have the proper headlights, GPD pulls you over and gives you a citation for that. That's one. Two, we talk about the recycling. We all pay for what we call abandoned vehicle. It's not really an abandoned vehicle. It's a littering issue. And I know that EPA, you've heard me say this on many other hearings. Your folks are great. They go out there, you end up going to the trash, you find a name. 2 times, no? 2 times. You guys have helped me. But my concern, you can find the name and you cite the folks for littering. Am I correct? And when we want to talk about vehicles, because I worked at Revenue and Tax, actually on the motor carrier, every vehicle has a registered owner. There's a VIN number. You can burn the vehicle to the bone and you can still find a VIN number. So let's not use that as a basis to not find an owner. Every vehicle that arrives in Guam is registered. For everyone that gets a vehicle and you're registered, when you choose to sell the vehicle, the person that purchased it has 30 days to register it. If he doesn't, the original owner is liable. Your concern should not be who it is, and your concern should not be too much of you can't find a number. That should be onus on Revenue and Tax. And you know why? Because if EPA or GPD puts a flag on the vehicle that's abandoned or littered, they can flag their taxes, their everything. They can't sell their property. They can't, if they're in business, they can't renew their license until they settle any violations that they have that exist. So it's on everybody. If you have an issue on littering on a vehicle and you tag it, you let Revenue and Tax know that you filed a littering violation. How much is it? Is it $1,000? What is the cost, Mr. Glenn?
It starts with $200 and then increases to no more than $1,000, and then it also includes community service.
Well, maybe like my colleague brought up, maybe we need to increase the fine specifically for vehicles. And you know, when Ms. Lastimosa brought up about vehicles in homes, 10 vehicles, your EPA. Is there an environmental impact when there's a bunch of vehicles in a property? Oil leak? Contamination of ground? Okay, and the reason why I bring this up, okay, is because EPA gets involved, but Revenue and Tax also gets involved. When I was at Revenue Tax, I worked as a compliance supervisor. We visited homes that are not zoned to sell or fix cars or fix white goods. And we find them. If you don't have a license, move it out. And they've cleared their property. Maybe at the same time as we identified EPA's maybe shortage of funding because of manpower, so you can be able to go out there and we can get Revenue and Tax to start going out there and enforcing compliance. They drive down the street and they see there's more than the normal number, the average normal of vehicles, like 5 or 6, knock on the door. I've done it many times, and that's how I find some folks that are not even licensed to rent homes. And I just go up there, I see a bunch of people, and say, hey, looking for rental, sir, or looking for I want to buy this house. They said, no, we're just renting. Who's the owner? They tell me, we find out. I go visit the owner, and then I give him a citation for conducting business without a license. That's $500. Yeah, it's a license to rent. And see, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because too many times we keep hearing about abandoned vehicle. It's not abandoned vehicle. It's a littering issue we have here. It's a littering. And what worries me is we keep using the word recycling. I want to ask a very simple, do we have a recycling facilities that we pay for recycling funds here on Guam? Do we? Because I don't think we do, right? I don't think we have a recycling company in Guam. There's no paper recycling. There's no plastic recycling facilities.
They collect it and then they consolidate it and ship it off island for.
They do?
Yeah.
Because you know that when you throw trash in your bin and it's collected, it's sorted down in Harmon. And where does it go? To the same place that all the trash goes. I think you need to verify that.
Maybe for the plastics.
My point is, we pay for the bin. We pay individually, we pay for recycling. If there's no true recycling facility on Guam, or there's no deduction that if you have people ship it off, who pays for that? Is it coming from that recycling fund?
Yes.
Yes?
The fee that we pay them, that they charge us to accept the cars.
Can you turn on the mic so we can make sure we hear that clearly?
It's the fee that we pay them to accept the cars, to process it and dispose of it. And at present time, it's $250 a car.
$250. If we change what we pay individually, instead of recycling, no, for the vehicles, maybe a disposal fee for the life of the vehicle being registered. You pay, what's the rate right now, $25? If you own a car for 10 years, times $25, it pays for a disposal. And then as you mentioned, DPW is involved. If somebody wants to get rid of the vehicle, is this DPW? Yes, I have a vehicle, my license plate number is this and this. I'm the registered owner, I like the vehicle disposed. DPW will have a directory of exactly who owns the vehicle. Come and get it and it's gone. People are paying supposedly for a service that are not happening. Mayor's office is going out there asking money from EPA to help clear and clean the island when the people of Guam that own the vehicles are just causing their own. You know, and we all have to admit it. Self-inflicted. If you own the vehicle, you're responsible until you dispose of the vehicle. Not abandon it. And when there's an accident, maybe we need to change something in the law that says when there's an accident, GPD, you have to make sure the vehicle's removed within 24 hours. Don't park it just because they got an accident. There's insurance. Remove it. Well, I have that issue up in Zigo. Okay, I see that a lot. They get hit, they hit the rail. It's that some of the vehicles are over 5 years old. They're already part of the forest, of the jungle. And what concerns me is that within 24 hours, I know that in Zigo, you park your vehicle on the side of the road, there's no tires within 24 hours. And the next 24, there's no doors, there's no windows. But there's still a VIN number on that vehicle to find the owner. That's what concerns me, you know, because like I said, Mr. Glenn, we've asked him several times to assist when we do the trash pickup and cleanup. They find the owners of the trash. you can sure find the owners of those vehicles. And if you have an issue with revenue and tax, we can ask that question. Who's the registered owner? They have a master roster or a master listing. Every vehicle. You can trace the vehicle all the way to where it was bought from the dealer and who the salesman is. And that's all I'm concerned. I just wanted to comment that it just concerns me, okay? We talk about registration that Senator Brown brought up. It bothers me. I pay for Street Light Fund. I don't need Street Light to pay Street Light Fund because the United States Department of Transportation license prove it's safe to drive that vehicle because it's got headlights. But we contribute to make sure the streets are lit for the people of Guam. Okay, and we go to the recycling. If EPA can find a source of somebody to come to Guam and collect our trash, because we pay, everybody that has a bin pays. And if it's going down to the landfill, in a few years from now, the people of Guam are going to pay for another construction. And it may not be 10 million, it may be more. We're going to keep paying for something that's going in that should have been recycled. Folks, we all watch Google, we watch YouTube. A lot of the stuff we have here can be recycled and reused. The G3 at USG has proven that. I've seen the products they produce, or what they call concrete block, but it's all plastic. You can recycle tires. I've seen that in the Philippines, and I've seen it down here in Guam. Turn it into patio chairs, maybe chairs for the parks. There's ways of doing things. It just bothers me that the other agencies that are not here should have been here. I know Revenue Tax will answer that they know how to find their owners. GPD would have been here to say, yes, they can remove the vehicle when there's an accident. And EPA, I know you can find the owners because Revenue Tax will give you that information. They cannot deny you. You know that if anybody wanted to know who owns the vehicle, just call them. It's public information. There's no restriction. It's not asking for your tax issues. As long as you don't deal in your income, they cannot deny you. Even the ownership of property, they can give you that. They can give you the owner of a business. It's allowed by law. I'm just familiar with that because I worked there.
Yeah, we work with Revenue and Tax and GPD and even the courts. They have different layers of access. If I can't get it through Revenue and Tax and the police, then I go with the courts. And they have another listing that they have access to that we try to capitalize on. But yeah, definitely we try to leverage all the government resources needed to find these individuals.
But you know what I mean, Glenn? Once you identify the original owner and it hasn't been changed, sorry, Chelu, you're still liable for the vehicle. And if you give him $1,000 or a $2,000 fine, he will move that vehicle and he'll ask, can you waive the fine and I'll get rid of the vehicle? You'd be surprised how fast owners will. I mean, if I had a vehicle and I sold it to somebody and they didn't change the registration, I will have that vehicle towed and disposed of immediately. Because why? I don't want Mr. Glenn coming up with another sheet of paper saying, you owe me another $1,000. No, it's going to end. It'll end real quick. And the people of Guam owners are they believe on accountability. But you know what? We're going to see what we can do with this bill and beef it up somewhere, because I do agree that the mayor should have access to some money. If you're identifying a bunch of vehicles and you're tagging them, it's similar to the police department. When they issue tickets, it goes to the courts. Well, if you issue tickets, and it goes to EPA, EPA should be able to respond by saying, we're going to give you money back so you can continue to go after the other vehicle. And then it becomes like a revolving fund, but EPA will control it. And I don't have a problem with that, but at least you'll be able to get work done. Then we can ask DPW how they're doing this, because they're removing so-called abandoned vehicle. But we can work this. Yes, sir.
They call us to remove it for them.
Yeah, I know, because every now and then they can't access it, but at one point in the very near future, they're going to have to remove it themselves. They got the funding, and they should be able to remove it now and relieve you of that. But you still have a responsibility to remove vehicles from your constituents' homes or in front of their homes. Because they're marked.
Yeah.
They're marked using the mayor's office marking, you know, like DEDU. I think it's DEDU, DMO. DMO? But the one that that bothers me a lot is that we keep talking that it's abandoned. It's not abandoned. It's a littering problem we have here. Because there's an owner there. Same way you cite them for dropping their trash. And that's that's really where I want to go at. Because everybody wants to keep Guam beautiful. And if we can stop the trash or slow down the trash, shouldn't be that hard to stop the abandoned vehicle. Tanza abandoned o mima zutia. Then find them and you watch, they'll pick up for themselves. And with that, I'll ask Senator Dueñas to give his closing and we can wrap up this bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'd like to add yourself, Senator Brown, Senator Perez, that's close. Wait, not there yet. That'll be on the floor. Thank you for your participation today, and I think we're getting there. We have a product to work with now in terms of recommendations, and to the Executive Director of the Mayor's Council, his Rogue Scholarship has served him well. There's some concurrence between the two entities in terms of what we need to work with, but I think our legal bureau will scrub this quickly and get some other recommendations. But I think we're getting close, and I think the chairman obviously is very passionate and interested in this as well. So hopefully we get that marked up, Mr. Chairman, and now that it's been substituted, and we get this concurrence and get it moving forward. Everyone have a great weekend.
Thank you, Senator Dueñas. Again, I want to thank everyone for attending this public hearing and for providing feedback and suggestions. Bill number 155-36 COR as amended by the Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriations and Housing is duly heard by the committee, and public hearing is now adjourned. The time now is 3:23. Please be safe and have a great day. Enjoy your weekend, please. Thank you.